Welcome, everyone. I am State Representative Joshua Putnam, and I'm joined here with Senator Kevin Bryant. Thank y'all for coming out tonight, and we do apologize for the chaos at the beginning. We put this together literally last Friday, so just trying to get all the agencies here involved. I will address the media real fast. You can take pictures at the beginning of this forum while the agencies are speaking. But when we open up the floor to questions for the investors, please ask y'all to please go quiet at that time out of respect to the investors. If you would like to go on camera after the meeting, you are more than welcome to, but during the time of actually taking questions and answers from the public, please go quiet during that time. I'm going to kind of give a brief overview of tonight's agenda. Me and Senator Kevin Bryant obviously learned about this investigation 2 weeks ago. And we've been on the phone with the Attorney General's office, also Secret Service and other state agencies. We felt last Friday we needed to get the public in here to be able to hear what's going on with the case and have an opportunity for you to voice your concerns and ask any questions and try to bring a little bit of light into this ongoing investigation. Me and Kevin's been dealing with this for 2 weeks now. We just felt it'd be a good idea to bring in the public. And also we have Senator Martin, who is the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And he will talk a little bit later on tonight about the legislation that is currently going through the House and the Senate that will try to address some issues with this case and to keep this from happening again. I'm going to introduce Tracy with the Assistant Attorney General's office. She'll be speaking a little bit about what their office is doing with this ongoing investigation. I'll turn it over to Senator Kevin Bryant to go down the rest of the agenda for tonight.
Actually, I think Assistant Attorney General Adam Winston's going to speak first, and then I'll speak, and then we'll kind of
go. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Adam Winston. I'm an Assistant Attorney General with the South Carolina Attorney General's Office. I know we're all here tonight seeking as much information as we can, but I want everybody to just, as we start, just be patient with us. Anytime you've got investigations ongoing, anytime you've got legal action ongoing, there's going to be certain things that can be discussed. There's going to be certain things that just can't be discussed. Also, as attorneys, there are ethical considerations of what we can talk about with regard to ongoing cases. There's just all sorts of legal and ethical considerations. So we just would ask for your patience and understanding as much as can be done, given what we're trying to do is give as much information as we can, but based on just the nature and the circumstances and the posture of this particular case, there's going to be certain things that just cannot be discussed. We just ask for just for you to bear with us as much as you can, and we will do our best to explain what's going on as best as we can under these circumstances. I'm going to turn it over to Tracy Myers to discuss specifically what's actually been taken.
And I am Tracy Myers. I'm the Senior Assistant Attorney General in the Attorney General's Office. And I think what Adam was also trying to say is I'm going to be able to speak kind of freely because I have a civil case and my action is filed. There's other agencies that are working as hard or harder than the Attorney General's Office that may not be able to talk about their case because either they're at a different stage in the investigation or, for example, a criminal case. And I'm not suggesting there is one or isn't one because I'm a civil lawyer, but if there's other cases, there's just different times and things that you can say about your case and can't. So my speaking more freely than another agency shouldn't be indicative of what's really going on behind the scenes. But as we begin, there were two things that I wanted to write down and talk about. I've been given a list of the questions that my staff are hearing the most often, and I wanted to address them. Every person working on this case is just heartsick that you good, decent people have lost the money. As it developed, my staff hoped and prayed that Atlantic Bullion would be found to be a legitimate company. Unfortunately, as you can tell from our complaint, this was not the case. I also want to say, though, don't blame yourself as you move through this process because you may have already noticed there's investors. The complaint alleges investors in 25 states, as well as doctors, lawyers, small business people, financial planners, people from all walks of life. that are among the investors. The reason for this is that people that run successful Ponzi schemes are good at what they do. Often, their investment operation is their full-time job, and they work very hard at it. When they use one approach to separate folks from their hard-earned money and it doesn't work, they step back and they think about it and they change and refine that approach. As a result, the approach that they use over time becomes better and better and better. As they learn to overcome objections that they've heard, and they either aren't able to overcome objections and don't become successful, or they overcome them and they become very successful. So that said, let's talk about where we are, how we got here, and what you might be able to expect in the future. In South Carolina, the Attorney General serves as the state's chief prosecutor, chief legal officer, and in an unusual twist, he is also the Securities Commissioner. The Attorney General passed the Securities Division, and it's not like the other areas. It was legislatively moved in 1996 from the Secretary of State's office, and we do different stuff. We're actually a regulatory area more so than the other areas. We register the people that sell securities. We register the people that give investment advice. We register the securities themselves. And we've started recently to do a lot of investor education because probably most of y'all have never heard of the Securities Division and probably didn't know that if somebody's selling a security, it has to be registered. We also seek to protect South Carolina investors against fraud and unfair or unethical practices. And it's for this reason that we actually brought the action against Mr. Wilson and Atlantic Bullion. As the complaint alleges, we believe Atlantic Bullion and Coin is a long-running Ponzi scheme. For anyone not familiar with the term Ponzi, in short, a scheme is a Ponzi that doesn't have a real investment. Some hallmarks of Ponzi's can be unusually large returns. The promoter looks very successful. He flaunts his wealth. They're often sold by means of testimonials from well-meaning friends who have done well, invested and done well, and they want their friends to do as well as they've done. They may involve exotic or unusual products that not everyone's familiar with. Silver, gold, foreign currency, prime bank debentures, and they may involve a trading scheme where maybe I'm an expert in one of these unusual products. Timing of the market, for example. There are some things that we do see over and over with Ponzi's that were red flags in this case, such as the promoter maintains a legitimate facade. He makes it look real and advertises the business as real even when it isn't. Has anybody here seen the videos of Mr. Wilson talking about silver? If you have, you know what I'm saying. I doubt anybody here that's seen those would look at that video, that well-produced video, and think, this doesn't seem real. I can look at it and it makes it appear legitimate. The difference is I've got the knowledge and training and experience behind the scenes to wonder what else is going on. But that's another hallmark of a Ponzi, that there's not a legitimate product, and soon after receipt, an investor's money usually leaves the account it was placed in to be spent either for the personal gain of the promoter, for referral fees, or to pay back other investors. So there's no money left. When an investor comes in and wants money, the promoter has to raise new money to pay the old investor. And so I think at some point there was a question about, there may be questions about why do you do what you do when you do. And the bad news is the night before I filed, I was actually thinking about the one victim I knew about at the time. And it's, without going into details, it's an elderly man, and I was just upset because I knew the minute that I filed the complaint that this poor 92-year-old that drove himself to his interview with me, caring for his wife with Alzheimer's, you know, in my mind I thought he's going to lose his money, and then I realized, no, wait, his money's already gone. It's what you're doing is stopping new inflow of money. So while I know many of you were upset that the account wasn't frozen the same day the action was filed, without going into detail about the money and any protection, I can tell you we carefully considered whether to wait and to file the complaint and freeze the money at the same time we filed. But in the end, there was so much new money flowing in every single day, and the money that had come from old investors was already gone. And we just thought the most important thing in this case, it was a judgment call, but it's, do you wait until there's different standards of proof to do things, and did we wait until we were at the point where we could freeze the account, or did we file the complaint and just stop the inflow of more money? We have had a couple of questions about the prior cease and desist order. I thought I'd go ahead and anticipate a question on it and address it. I was actually with the Securities Division in 1996 and was the only attorney there when an anonymous complaint came in, so I'm very familiar with and can speak to that consent order, that, quote, someone was selling coin, gold, and silver up here, and that the silver wasn't registered. And when we looked, we identified Mr. Wilson and his business, and we talked to him, and he stressed to us his primary business was selling coins. He did say he also sold gold and silver to other folks, to folks that wanted. But he made it clear at that time that what he did was sell the items, and strict retail sale of these items is, you know, if it doesn't involve a security, if it doesn't involve an investment, a strict retail sale is not within the Securities Division's jurisdiction. We had no complaining investor. Another hallmark of a Ponzi is you tend to, when people start complaining, if you're a great Ponzi scheme operator, you pay them off right away, because what do you not want? Word in the community that anybody's having a problem, because it makes everybody think about it. So we got him, and I thought it was a real coup for us that he agreed to sign a consent that he wasn't selling securities. He contested that he was. I mean, he said, I'm not selling them, but we were able to get him to sign a consent saying, you know, I'm not going to sell them without registration. And with nothing else, the matter was closed. I've heard and I agree that the 1996 cease and desist order was not widely publicized. You do have to realize, back in 1996, 15 or 16 years ago, the internet is not what it is now. There wasn't a good way to do mass publicity of orders in a way the information would stay in the public domain for any period of time. You could have an article in the paper, and the next day it's gone. This problem was cured with the rise of the internet. All of the Securities Division cease and desist orders now are posted online and have been for several years, and they can be accessed both through the South Carolina Attorney General's website and also by doing a Google search for keywords. If you do investing in the future, I would encourage you to check the Attorney General's website, or even to call our staff directly. We can't tell you if investing in something is a good or a bad idea. That's a judgment call. But we can tell you if the person's registered, if the security's registered, or if it isn't. And if we see things that might cause us concern, if it was our money, we can alert you to that. We also have presentations that we can do for groups. There's some that are not so interesting that are on stocks and bonds and stuff and would put you to sleep. We also have about a 20 or 30 minute one on, here's the red flags of Ponzi's, and that one is usually, I've never heard anybody not walk away thinking that one was interesting. What's next? I can't tell you much about what will happen next, but our case is still ongoing. I would say I would be surprised if we don't amend the complaint to add more defendants. We've identified people that have profited through sales commissions, and those people either need to return the money for the benefit of the investors, or they need to be added to the complaint, or both things need to happen to them. The questionnaire that you got as you arrived can help us with that. I would ask that you complete it and return it to me or Adam or Representative Putnam or Senator Bryant before you leave tonight. If you've already completed one online, you don't need to complete another. If you called in, it's kind of a judgment call to you whether you do it or not. My motto is always better safe than sorry, so I would probably go ahead and complete it. We also want to talk to anyone that hosted a silver party or a seminar or anything else for Mr. Wilson. Again, please contact me, Adam. I haven't asked the Secret Service, but I'm sure that you can contact them as well before we leave. If we're tied up, you can write your name and contact information on a sheet of paper and get it to us. The main point here is, in terms of wanting to do the right thing for investors, if you become a sales agent or if you've been a host, I think it would be a good idea if you contact us before we contact you. Other things that might happen include the appointment of a receiver. You may have heard Atlantic Bullion's bank account was frozen the other day, and that the Securities Division in our complaint has asked for a receiver to be appointed. That's correct. I'm happy to tell you that because of the hard work of all the agencies involved, we're currently working with Mr. Wilson's attorney to get that done. We've been told that Mr. Wilson will agree to an injunction prohibiting the bank account from being released until a receiver is appointed, and that he's also indicated that he would consent to a receiver, and we're working to get that done as quickly as possible. Still anticipating questions. I'm in a quandary because I cannot speak for the other groups here. However, I read the paper and the news media as well as you do, and I'm seeing certain agencies that are out, and from what the news is reporting, they are very, very active. And as a result, one of the questions that has come up is, could there be a possibility of more than one receiver? I can't comment with respect to that, but I will say that if, for example, I believe the Secret Service's prosecuting arm, they would be investigatory. I believe the arm would be the U.S. Attorney's Office. And if, for example, the U.S. Attorney's Office reviewed the case for possible criminal action, and if they sought and obtained a receiver, my opinion is that federal receivers are generally very good, very thorough in terms of recovering assets. And I would think that if even if a state got the receiver put in place ahead of time, my recommendation generally would be that you all work through one receiver, the federal receiver. You turn over the bank account, you turn over anything that might have gotten accumulated in the meantime to that federal receiver. We'll just kind of have to see how that goes. I also anticipate, just based on what investors have said, a lot of questions on the class action. The Attorney General's office is not, will not, and cannot be involved in any such action, including to give legal advice on whether you should be involved. We can't comment on the proposed action. I will say, rest assured that I believe the law enforcement agencies working this case have and will continue to take the action that we can with respect to, looking out for investors in this case. I think there are going to be some other people that speak, so let's wait and hold questions until after.
Thank you, Ms. Myers. We appreciate that, and it's very frustrating and it's very disappointing as to why we're here. We do appreciate y'all coming. Hopefully some information that y'all have might help these investigative agencies. We do have Special Agent Michael Sloan with SLED. SLED does not have anything to report here tonight, but we do appreciate them coming just to listen and hear what's said and anything that they have to do with the investigation. This just tells us that they're very concerned. At this time, I'll call on Resident Agent in Charge Thomas Griffin from Greenville. He is with the United States Secret Service. He will give us an update of what he can, and I need to remind you, there's some things investigators can say and some they can't. We certainly understand that, but he does have some things that he's agreed to come and share with you.
Again, I'm Tom Griffin. I'm with the Secret Service office here in Greenville. I'm the resident agent in charge. And also with me tonight is Agent Jason Durgan. He is actually the case agent that's been assigned to this investigation of this case. I want to say this at the onset. It is extremely rare for the Secret Service to even confirm that we have an investigation underway.